Hello, everybody. Booker Player 1 here, and welcome to my tier list for Donkey Kong Country Animal Buddies. I've recently taken to playing Donkey Kong Country 2 over on Twitch, and during my playthrough, I discovered I had a lot of opinions about the various animal buddies we use in these games. This tier list is just going to be animal buddies from the first three games, the original trilogy on the SNES, so no handheld consoles, no consoles that came after the SNES, just the original three games. For those of you who don't know, Donkey Kong Country is a series of games where monkeys go through levels doing a bunch of platforming and essentially going on scavenger hunts. And I guess they like sometimes they like rescue their relatives or something, but it's mostly a scavenger hunt. It's mostly a scavenger hunt. So to start things off with, let's go ahead and talk about our boy here, Rambi. Rambi is the first animal buddy that you're going to come across in the first two games. He's in the first level of both games. And Rambi is the best example of why we even have animal buddies in the first place. I feel like it was Rare's answer to Yoshi if Mario got to ride around on Yoshi, and that was super popular. Well, let's give the Donkey Kong clan some buddies to ride around on. And Rambi's a really good example of that. Rambi's a very solid animal buddy. He's super fun to ride around on. You get to plow through bad guys, charge through walls and doors looking for secret areas. He gets to jump on zingers. His idle animation, he pants like a dog. Very, very solid effort. Very, very at home in these games. One of the first things I think about after the main cast, just tell me something about something from Donkey Kong Country, like, oh, Rambi. I think about that. We're going to put Rambi in A tier. And there's really only one thing that's going to keep him out of S tier, and that is how bad and slippery the platforming can feel while you're using Rambi. And this is going to be true for a lot of our animal buddies, but it feels really bad with Rambi. But still solid A tier animal buddy. Next up, we have Espresso the Ostrich. Espresso the Ostrich has a couple of gimmicks to using him. The main one is that Espresso is very fast, traverses over the ground very quickly. Secondly, you can use the wings to flutter jump over large sections of the levels that you find him in. Basically lets you skip over stuff the same way you would use the cape in Super Mario World to skip over stuff, just not quite as busted. And then last, Espresso is so tall from having the ostrich legs with the boots there, or the running shoes, I guess they are. That low to the ground enemies like claptraps can't damage you while you're riding Espresso. Espresso is going to go in B tier, and here's why. Espresso has the same platforming issues that Rambi and some of the other buddies do, but due to Espresso's speed, it's a lot easier for that kind of thing to get away from you while using Espresso. Next up, we have Winky. Winky the Frog. Winky is definitely one of my other favorite animal buddies from the first game. If Rambi is your big, strong, beefy type character animal buddy, then Winky is most definitely the nimbly bimbly, jumpy wumpy, acrobatic animal buddy. You get to use Winky to jump up to like super hard to reach areas, items you couldn't normally reach, bonus areas you couldn't normally reach. Winky also gets to jump on bad guys, gets to jump on zingers and take them out. We're going to go ahead and put Winky in A tier just because he's super fun to use. And I also feel like he has the best platforming out of those three right there. Sadly, he's only in the first game. So same thing as Espresso, just a lack of quantity. Next up is going to be On Guard the Swordfish, which for me is a super easy S tier pick. And here is why. While he's essentially just Rambi that can swim, On Guard helps mitigate one of the biggest handicaps the Kongs have underwater, which is the inability to get rid of enemies. So getting On Guard feels extra good. It feels like a well-earned boon when you find him tucked away in a secret area in an underwater level, and just makes everything easier, just swordfish plowing through enemies. It's super fun. He also has a charge-up move like Rambi, where he'll just dart forward really fast, and it just feels good to watch him go careening into enemies and knocking stuff off screen and smashing into walls to find secret areas. He's also one of the only animal buddies to be in all 3 games. So if you're an on guard stand, well then congratulations. You got an animal buddy to ride with through the entirety of the trilogy. Next up we have, oh boy, we have Ratley, which is just going solidly in D tier, and here's why. First of all, this wannabe derpy danger noodle replaces Winky as the jumping animal buddy in Donkey Kong Country 2, which is just a huge amount of points off. Sorry, Ratley, Winky is way better than you. Secondly, he suffers from the same slippery, kind of awkward, not quite as solid as just the Kong's platforming that a lot of the animal buddies have. And this wouldn't be so bad, except there's a level in the back half of the second game called Toxic Tower, where I have to use a series of animal buddy barrels to traverse the level, and Ratley's section is by far the worst section, where if you miss a single jump, run into a single enemy, make one single mistake, you're doing the rest of the level over. The only thing keeping this snake out of F tier is that his charge up move is kind of cool. He's coiled like a spring, so if you hold A, he'll bounce up and down, he'll coil himself, and you'll jump extra high, and that's kinda neat, but nah, I can't. You replace Winky, and your section is one of the worst things in the entirety of the second Donkey Kong Country game. So in D tier, D for dumpster tier, you go, my friend. Next up, we have Squawks. So Squawks is an interesting case because he's essentially 2 different animal buddies, taking how he works in the first game versus how he works in the other games. In the first game, he only features in 1 level, and he's basically a level gimmick. He just holds a light for you in a cave level that's super dark. And here's how trivial that ability is, where speedrunners don't even get Squawks. They just navigate the entire level in the dark because it's not that hard. So it kind of makes Squawks a very whatever inclusion. Like almost didn't even need to be there. He picks up his own share of the weight though in the other games, where now he's bigger and can carry the Kongs. He can shoot eggs to take out enemies. The flying is a little awkward. It's very momentum based. Like if you just mash the fly button, then he's just going to go careening in that direction, which is usually in the direction of a hazard or an enemy. So not the best, but it definitely makes up for how gimmicky he is in the first game. If I was just ranking him strictly on the first game, he'd just be in C tier. Like it's a cute, clever sort of level gimmick, but whatever. But his abilities in the second game let him perk him up a little bit. So I believe I can go ahead and put Squawks solidly in B tier. I think that's a good place for our parrot buddy to live, is B tier. Next up, we have Clapper. Now, Clapper isn't really a proper animal buddy. He's not like a mountable or rideable. You know what? No version of that sounds good, but like he doesn't work like the other ones. He doesn't carry you around. He's like a level gimmick, which usually would put him further down the list, but the levels he features in, they're fun levels. And also, as a level gimmick, while it's necessary to use him, it's not frustrating to do so. They don't tuck him like out of the way or make it hard to get to him or anything like that. It's always just right there. You just need to use him, and then the challenge in the level is to basically beat the clock, not struggle to get to the next Clapper. The 2 levels he features in, one is an underwater level where the water is boiling hot and you use Clapper to shoot bubbles to lower the temperature. And the other one is an ice cave level that you use them to freeze the water so you can go around and pick up collectibles, avoid bad guys, that kind of thing. So we're putting him in B tier just because those levels are fun, but he's not like a true animal buddy. So fun levels, but gotta put you in B tier for not being a quote-unquote real animal buddy. Next up, we have Squitter, and just immediately S tier. S is for Squitter tier. S, triple S. S triple plus in triplicate, all the S's. Squitter is hands down the best animal buddy, and I'll tell you why. First of all, look at that face. How can you not love that derpy, comical, slightly nightmare-inducing face? He's also a spider that gets to wear sneakers. I love it. Squitter is totally one of those guys that has a closet full of sneakers, like that's his thing. Like he doesn't collect like trading cards or anything like that. It's sneakers for him. Gameplay wise, he also has a totally awesome kit. He gets to spit webs at enemies. He gets to make his own web platforms. So he can go anywhere he wants, take out any enemy he wants. The only thing other animals might have over him is their ability to jump on enemies, like Rattly or Ramby or whatever. But he doesn't even need that. He has the old Spider-Man style machine gun. He just goes ham on zingers with the spiderweb machine gun. Best animal buddy. If you disagree with me, I'll fight you. Next up, we have Glimmer. Glimmer is literally just Donkey Kong Country 1 Squawks, but underwater. We're going to put Glimmer in C tier, and here's why. Two reasons. One, it is a gimmick. It's just underwater squawks. But the level is fun. Also, you can do this, if you pause the game at the right time, you do this really neat trick where you can blind yourself. Fun, right? But between the blinding thing and the level being fun, I feel like C tier is a solid spot for Glimmer. Now we get to Quawks, which is essentially Squawks' less successful, less talented cousin. And he is also going to go straight into dumpster tier, and here's why. Quawks only features in a handful of levels between the second and third games. And in those levels, in the second game, all he is essentially a glorified parachute. You hop on, he can go down. You can hold up to like slow your descent, but he can't shoot eggs, he can't fly. And there are sections of that level where it's actually easier and faster to just bypass him and use Dixie's helicopter hair twirl to descend instead. In the third game, he does gain the ability in some levels to like pick up barrels and drop them, which is at least a more engaging type of gameplay than just get on bird and go down. But, I mean, even that doesn't help him get out of dumpster tier. The levels are just not great. It's very boring gameplay. D tier is where he belongs. Next up, we have Perry the Parallel Bird. And if Clapper is the way to do a gimmicky level animal buddy style thing the right way, Perry is the way to do it the wrong way. We're going to be putting Perry in F tier, and here's why. The way Perry works is you have to help navigate Perry through the levels you find him in, and if you get him to a certain point to the end, whatever, you get whatever the bonus is. Item, extra lives, bonus barrel, that sort of thing. But if it dies, hits an enemy, well, congratulations, you're doing the level over to get that thing that you missed. So this animal buddy ends up being really less of a boon and more of a chore. And anytime you give me like a buddy or an assisted ally or whatever, and it's a chore, that's bad. This animal buddy is the equivalent of that drunk friend who gets like super wasted and then needs your help finding their own car later. Last but not least, we have the other new animal buddy from Donkey Kong Country 3, Ellie the Elephant. Now, Ellie does lose a few points in my book because Ellie replaced Ramby, and I really like Ramby. But Ellie is actually a lot of fun to use. We're going to put Ellie in A tier. Whereas Winky being replaced by Rattly was a strict downgrade, this at least feels like we're breaking even. Ellie's kit includes being able to suck up water and squirt it at enemies, pull barrels towards her and grab them, that sort of thing. There's also an interesting mechanic where she's afraid of mice. There are like mice enemies that she's afraid of, which sounds kind of annoying, but it's super on brand for an animal elephant buddy, and I'm kind of here for it. Could have possibly seen putting her in S tier if she just didn't replace our boy Ramby. Still really like Ellie, though. I felt it was a solid addition. Also, I can't believe it took us 3 Donkey Kong Country games to get an elephant. It just seems like super on brand for a a jungle style sort of video game. But it took 3 games to get an elephant, so. But yeah, solid A tier Animal Buddy. And that is my SNES Donkey Kong Country Trilogy Animal Buddy tier list. If you have any thoughts or comments about it, feel free to leave them below, or any suggestions for a tier list you might want to see in the future if you enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed watching, and until the next video, everyone out there, stay safe.